Welcome back, boys and girls. Not about to say another evening down the garage. It's not evening, it's actually about 11 o'clock, I think, in the day. Yeah, rare occasion. Basically the wife's got all her pals around the house today to meet the new baby. I didn't fancy sitting indoors with a whole load of women nattering bollocks, basically. So decided to escape down the garage for a few hours and crack on with where we left off. Now, been down here about an hour. As you can see, the front end of the Nova is completely off. Now that it's off, I can actually show you just how bad it was properly without trying to lean you under the car. But so just rusted there, very poor patch panel there, very rusted all in there, patch there, another patch there. It's got rust and splits all in there. Turn it around, there's a patch there, there's a patch there, there's another patch there. You get the idea, it was just a bit shit. So that can go. Cool. There's rust falling out of it now as well. And I mean, ignore the leaves, obviously they didn't come out of it, but there's quite a lot of rust that came out the inside of the panel as I was cutting it off. So, front panel is off. Both good and bad bits behind, actually. It's not too bad. There were some very questionable repairs, one of them being up here. I actually managed to remove the whole repair panel with just one screwdriver. So we're going to have to cut this around here and make a piece up to go in there. These tabs all seem to be fairly okay. The chassis rails are good. There's a little bit on the inside there, you can see. So we might try and patch that, but a couple of little holes, but the inside is it's not rusted all the way through. So this end is a little bit deformed and a bit rusty, so I'm not sure what we're going to do about that. I'm not going to cut it out yet. I'm going to get the panel in and see where things line up. This here on this end is completely gone. That has rusted all the way through, you can see. So we're going to do a cut across there, cut this out and just redo that bit in there. Bottom of this side of the chassis rail still very good, very strong, no rust on that apart from the odd bit of surface, so happy with that bit. And then obviously the wings bolt on 1, 2, 3 on the front anyway, and then obviously this side here. This side is what that side is meant to look like. So yeah, popular time lapse and get these plates made up, welded in, and then we can look at squeezing the front panel on. Once that's all in, we can get back to the good stuff, which is like the turbo stuff and the exhaust and all that nice mint stuff. Also, Wes has ordered a new fuel pump. Meant to turn up this week, hasn't turned up yet because of the postal strikes, but will arrive at some point, and then we can finally get back to where we were the other night and getting this old beast to fire up. Anyway, right, let's crack on. welcome back, ladies and gents, boys and girls. How's your Christmas? Was it good? New Year, was it good? Wonderful. Right, so been a while, obviously, since we last did a video. We started on the front panel, which is now complete. Since that video, it's been Christmas, it's been New Year. I've been sick as a dog. My wife's been sick as a dog. I've had a baby. It's all just been a bit hectic, to be honest with you. So I've done very little on the Nova. I had planned to have it all done and dusted and out of the garage by now. But obviously, yeah, those few things cropped up in December, and actually I think I touched the car once maybe during December. But we are back down the garage this evening. It is cold, hence the hat. But let's give you a quick recap. So we have got front panel is all now fully mounted, all seam sealed back up how it should be. Seam sealed all inside there. We've patched in a piece there, patched in a piece over here that was rotten. It's all seam sealed again down there like it should be. Seam sealed the inside, seam sealed the undersides. So yeah, a fully nice strong single piece front panel. I would go and find the old front panel, which is around the corner somewhere. I think I showed you it in the last video. That thing was rotten, and on top of that it had a couple of big chunks cut out of it. So basically what had happened with the old one, it was rotten, and then you can see quite obviously this downpipe is going to hit this. So this had been notched to clear the downpipe, which took a huge chunk out of here, and then on top of that, where this turbo had come down, it was notched here as well, which took a huge chunk out of that, and it was rotten all across the front, and it had been patched, etc, etc. So with the two big notches and all the rot, it just was not very sturdy, not very safe. And seeing as we managed to get hold of a panel, we just changed the whole thing. So all done, lovely. Probably the biggest job to do is all done and dusted. Left to do is build a turbo downpipe, or rebuild the turbo downpipe. That obviously is the turbo downpipe there, or the old one. But I've cut that off because it doesn't fit very well at all, to be honest. And I'm going to remake it from this point here downwards somehow. We're going to miss this cross member, move it back, make sure that it fits past the cold side nicely, tuck it up around the pan, and then send it off nice and neat down the back there to the back box and out the side exit. So that's next on the list. Once that's done, we can put some oil in it, put some fluids in it. I've now got the new fuel pump for it, not fitted yet, but I have now got the new fuel pump for it. Put the fuel pump on it, put some gas in it, and on Wednesday night this week, with any luck, we should be firing her up. And once she's fired up and good to go, it's just a few cases of nuts and bolts in a cooler, bumper. The brakes are already bled, just got to put some washers on the in and out of CV joints, and a whole host of other little bits and pieces, but 90% of it is there. So it should start to come together quite quickly once everything's all finished being welded. So I'm going to stop waffling. I'm probably going to pop you on a time lapse for a little while, and I'm going to work out how I'm going to make this fit down there without hitting anything and staying away from everything that shouldn't be hot. Right, let's crack on. What do we get to? Right, so I did film a time lapse, but I had the camera sort of there somewhere, and I was working here, and all the time lapse really was with my back. You couldn't actually really see what was going on, so scrap that, and I'll just show you what I've done so far. So cut off the existing downpipe here, added a load of pie cuts in so that I could get it tucked in nicely behind the cross member there. Now it is tight, but it doesn't. There's plenty of room on the back there. It is tight on the front, but it doesn't hit, and there's not that much movement in the engine mount. So I'm happy with that. And then I've just got a straight 90 on the bottom there, coupler, and then I put a 45-degree bend in there and another bit of pipe. And then don't know where the pipe is now, but basically there's going to be another 45 on the bottom of there, which is going to kind of go straight at a bit of an angle, and then there's going to be some other 45s, and then that's going to go onto the flexi, which is sitting on the floor there, and then basically, drop the camera, basically a whole lot of wiggly woggly woo. Now I've had to buy, or had to ask Wes to buy a load more pie cuts and a few more 45s because of the way I'm trying to keep it tucked in, because this car is so low and this is 3-inch exhaust. It's a battle between trying to keep the exhaust high enough so that it's not going to scrape on every bump and stone in the road, but also keeping it far enough away from things like the gear shift linkage and stuff. So it is a bit all over the place trying to squeeze it in, but we'll get it in and it will work. Anyway, that's as far as I've got with the exhaust. I'm not going to go any further. I could tack the other 45 and a bit more straight in, but to be honest, I know what will happen is I'll tack that all in and then I'll get the other bits and I'll try and put the other bits in and it won't be right and I'll have to take the bits out that I've just tacked. So I'm just going to leave that there where it is. Dean is on his way down the workshop tonight, which is another evening tonight, obviously, from when I last spoke to you a minute ago, if you hadn't noticed. But Dean is on his way down. What we're going to do instead this evening to lighten our spirits is I've got 10 litres, well it's actually 11.5 litres, but 10 litres of premium gasoline in those canisters. I have got the fuel lines in here that we needed. I've got the AN6 fitting somewhere. I've just got to swap that over to a black one so it matches. I have got a brand new fuel pump. That was lucky, wasn't it? I've got brand new fuel pump. This is a Cytec pump, not a 044. Exactly the same as an 044, just a slightly cheaper equivalent. I run on one on the Fiesta, and to be honest with you, never had any problems, and it's about half the price of an 044. So I've just got to get this swapped over from that down there, get this thrown in, connect those lines up, throw some jank in a tank, put some oil in it. So I don't know, I can't remember if I showed you this or not, but the other week when we tried starting it, we also weren't getting any oil pressure whilst it was cranking. Now, I think that's probably just down to the case of the fact the engine doesn't turn over very fast when cranking, so it's not moving fast enough to build any pressure. But just to be on the safe side, I did strip the sump off. We checked the pickup pipe and everything, made sure it wasn't blocked and that kind of thing. And also did a bit of reading up on these, and the oil pumps on these can get very, very dry if the engine's sat for a long time. Now this engine has sat for a long time, so whilst I had it apart, I took the bits and pieces off the front of the oil pump, filled the oil pump with engine assembly lube so that it's nice and wet and got some lubrication in there. And then obviously when we refill with fresh oil, it's going to be poured from the engine top down, so that will sort of wet everything on the way down. Obviously we've got no coolant in it, but we don't need coolant in it just to run it for 60 seconds or so. I will put some gearbox oil in because I'm going to run it through the gears, just to make sure we've got a good clutch in all the gears. Make sure she starts, that kind of thing. Makes a bit of noise, you know. I probably should put the wastegate back on before we start it up, because otherwise that would be a bit loud, wouldn't it? I mean, it's going to be a bit loud anyway, just with that little bit of turbo downpipe on. But yeah, there we go. Right, I'm going to stop waffling. Let's get this fuel line in, and then fuel pump in, and put some fuel in it, put some oil in it, turn the key, see what happens. Right, let's crack on. Right, okay, first job done. So swap these lines over. Obviously it did have this black, this is the return line off the Fiesta that I borrowed, so I've taken that off, put Wes's lines back in because we've now got the correct fitting for here. The only downside is, and Wes did buy an AN6 to go on here that's black, so that everything would be black, but when I got it out of the packet, I realised, where did I put it? Over here. I'll put it out of this box now, put it in this box to keep it safe. I realised he has brought a PTFE fitting, which is a different style fitting. 2 seconds. Here he is. Yeah, so as I was saying, he's brought PTFE style fitting rather than a rubber braided hose line fitting. Not a problem, I just left the coloured one on there for now, but actually to be fair, that's a coloured one, and I might paint them black, I don't know, I'll see what Wes wants to do. But fuel line is in. Dean has just arrived, as you've just seen, obviously. So let's get the fuel pump in. Once the fuel pump's in, we'll put some oil in it, we'll connect the plugs back up, we'll put the leads back in it, and
give it a turn.
See what happens. Right, cracking on time. If you ever wonder how we managed to do all this work down the garage, that bucket there basically explains it. Beer and Red Bull. It's basically how this works down here. Beer and Red Bull. Anyway, right, as you've just seen, fuel line is in. I've just got the pump in. I've attached all the pump stuff back up. I'm going to put that in there. Let's take the, if you take that, Dean, actually, let's take the bumper out the back of the car so that it's out of the way for now.
Right, safe spot for that.
Can go up there for now. Wonderful. I really need to hurry up and paint this floor so that it's not dusty and crappy anymore. Right, that's that, that's that. Let's just pull that out of the way. Fuel tank bolts are there actually, to get the fuel tank bolted in later on. Right, let's throw a bit more Jankus in the tankers. Connect the battery up. I've still got the relay out so I can bridge that, and we'll just test for fuel pressure, get the swirl pot filled up first. Let's do all of that before we do anything else. Right, let's put some fuel in.
Got enough?
Well, I went and got another 10 litres. There's already 5 or 6 in there from last time. I got another, well, like 11.46 litres or something. It's not quite as varnished as the other stuff was as well.
A few moments later.
Bit fumey in here, isn't it? Fancy your fact.
So give it a few months. We're doing this other car as well.
Do what, sorry?
Give it a few months. We're doing this other car as well.
That's it, yeah. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'll have to come over and we'll do an update on that soon, actually.
Got 7 weeks.
7 weeks. You heard it here, ladies and gents. 7 weeks, and Dean's Escort will be running.
Wow. Everything we're running.
No, you said it. You said it. Right.
7 weeks to get electrics finished off. That's my plan.
Right. Okay. So we've got Jankus in the tankers. What I might do is disconnect the negative off of the high pressure pump, so that we can just run the lift pump till we get the swirl pot full. Otherwise, that's going to run dry.
Alright.
And we don't want to run a brand new pump dry, do we?
Alright. Where are you going?
Right. Okay. So oil's in it and isn't leaking, which is always a good sign. I've reconnected the fuel relay, which I think is the right way around, and I've reconnected the ECU. So in theory, when I turn this, pump should prime. Sounds good to me, doesn't it?
Mm.
And then it should crank, and coils are plugged in, plugs are back in, that's back in.
Fuel leak sorted at the front.
Pretty much it's go time, isn't it? Right, ready?
Yeah.
It's not cranking.
Oh.
Oh, why is it not cranking? It was cranking.
We had it cranking before.
We had it cranking, didn't we? Right, okay, worked it out. Remembered, there's no engine strap on. There's no earth strap from the block to the body. Last time I had a jump lead hooked up. That's why I haven't got the jump leads here, because they're back at my house because I needed them something else. So I've just hooked up this battery cable at the moment with set more grips on the ground going to the block, which should do the job. So in theory, should now crank.
The next day.
Right, boys and girls, filming on my phone because nothing wrong with the GoPro. It's just the memory card's full up, and I completely forgot to take all the stuff off and put it on the hard drive before I came down here tonight. So using the phone, so excuse the poor quality and the weird angles. You always get strange angles when I do it on the phone because I can't see what I'm looking at. But right, so we left off. We were trying to get the car started, couldn't get the car started. Whittled it down to we had no spark on the block, no spark. So then we traced that back to no power on the coil pack. So there was no positive power to the coil pack. So started tracing that back, assuming there must have been a fuse that's gone or something, I don't know. Started tracing it back, and we found a whole host of little bits and pieces that need to be sorted out, basically. So we started pulling it apart, so it's all still a bit of a mess, but basically I pulled all the loom through there so we could get to it and actually see what is what. Now, to start with, the main power that fed everything, there was a single 20 amp fuse, which fed, I can't even find where that bit is now. There was a single 20 amp fuse, here it is, that fed absolutely everything. So everything came through this single 20 amp fuse, and the ends of it were literally just twisted and then taped up to the next lot of stuff. So like that was just twisted to there and taped on. So first little problem we need to sort out there, because twisting and taping is not my idea of a decent connection. And then on top of that, we had, so I had everything going through Was it this relay? I think it was this relay. So we had everything going through this relay, which was switched by the ignition key on the car, which again it's not a problem. That works. It doesn't work like that. In fact, I think if you look up the wiring diagram for this particular ECU, it does tell you to do it that way. And then coming out of there, everything just went to the loom. And then whilst we was poking around, the fuel pump, which is that one there, fuel pump positive, literally just went from a ring terminal on the battery to the relay to the fuel pump. They had no fuse, no other switch, nothing, no other protection. Literally all it was controlled by was the ECU and that relay. So there's another issue, no fuse on the fuel pump, which is, you know, potentially a fire waiting to happen. So we need to rewire that and put that on a fuse. And then when we started tracing the loom back to try and work out where we were going with, that's the ring terminal that it was on there. So then when we started tracing through the loom to try and find this 12 volt for the ECU, 12 volt for the coil pack, we came across this mess in here. We've got some very questionably soldered joints in there. There's one, there's two, and then in these there's a couple. You can see that. Let's see if I can get to focus. That blue one there has snapped off, so I don't know where that's meant to be going, so I need to find out where that's meant to go. I think that's probably meant to connect to that one there. So that there is a problem in itself. It's obviously a broken wire, and I think that's the VR sensor, that's the hall sensor for the crank, I think. The shielding for the VR sensors is questionable at best. And then also there's this here, which looks to me like it might have melted at some point. But there's like melted sheathing there, an exposed cable, which was then touching on this ground. This here is a ground that's been soldered, so that was all touching in there. So whatever was on this one was going straight to ground. So that all needs to be sorted out. And then inside here, I found there's another very questionable solder there, which I don't know what that is or where that's going. I need to find that out. But another very questionable solder with an exposed way of it conducting something. And then on top of here, I need to find the cable in the loom somewhere. But one of these black cables that was coming out of the ECU plug had de-pinned itself. I'm guessing probably where it's been twisted and turned and poked in and out of stuff. But so that needs to be repinned. So whole host of little electrical gremlins that we need to sort out. I think that's obviously why we weren't getting any spark. So basically what I'm going to do this evening is crack on with this, and we have got a plan. So I'm going to sort out obviously all this loom here. Now there's no need to redo the whole loom. It's all there. It's all reasonable. I mean, most of these they're all soldered, and you know, that one there soldered and heat shrink, soldered and heat shrink, soldered and heat shrink. So most of them there are pretty good. They're not that bad at all. Just sort out those questionable ones there, and then I'm going to rerun the power for everything. So the power for the coil pack, power for the injectors, power for the fuel pump. I'm going to rerun all of that because that was, like I said, all just going through that one single 20 amp fuse, which I guess is fine. And it's just not the way I'd do it, but everything was going through that single 20 amp fuse. So what I'm going to do is we're going to put a cut off in anyway. So I'm going to run the cut off into one of these, into this block here, which has got 4 fuses in there. So we'll have fuel pump, injectors, and relay. God, I can't get my words out tonight. This is going to have the coil pack, the fuel pump, and the injectors on there, and then that will switch through one of these relays. I've got a relay there, which I'll probably use for the fuel pump, and then I've got the other relay there, which I'll use for the switching of the ECU. So yeah, get that rewired, get everything back into how it should be, make these up how they should be. This section, whole section here, was just wrapped in black electrical tape, which you can now see is all over my floor. So I've still got some grey loom up here, so we're going to get that all proper in some braided loom to make it look nice and neat. And yeah, get that all put back in the car, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it will start. When we were cranking it, the fuel pump was coming on, so I definitely know that we were getting signal from the crank sensor, because the fuel pump's still controlled by the ECU. So if it doesn't see RPM, it doesn't engage the fuel pump. So I know that much was happening. We just weren't getting any spark. So we'll go from there. Oh, and there was also a leaky injector O-ring on there, so I've got to take the fuel rail off and sort that out. But for tonight, I'm just going to crack on with this wiring. I'm not going to show you it because it's kind of all a bit boring here, and it's all a bit under there, and it's a bit twisted, and a bit this and a bit that. So I'm just going to crack on with it, and I'll show you it all once it's all in, and we'll see what happens when we turn the key once it's all been sorted and put back together. Right, it's been a couple of hours to be fair to you, but we are getting there now. So before I bundle this all back in there so you can't see it, I'm going to show you what I've done. So all the powers now, so all the 12 volt power that goes to the injectors, to the coil pack, and the, what was the purple one? I can't remember what the purple one was now, off the top of my head. So all those green, so it's not, sorry, no, I do remember. So all the powers now, I've got a twisted pair going to the coil, I've got a purple one going to the injectors, and then we've got the green, which is the power for the ECU, all coming back now in this twisted bundle. I've separated out the ECU grounds and the sensor grounds because they'd all been bundled in. So the ECU grounds are now in their own separate bundle over there. The sensor grounds, which is this bundle here, and that's what was soldered together with these little golden nuggets of wonderfulness. That is all now twisted in nicely. It pairs up here, it takes up the shielding as well, and then all reduces down into one nice cable into the plug. So that there is a little bit better, well, quite a lot better than that. Unfortunately, I didn't have the right size heat shrink here. That was the closest size I had, so it didn't quite shrink up, but all in all, it is all getting there. So I've got 2 more left to do. I've got number 19 to connect up, which I need to trace back because I can't actually remember where that came from. And then I've got number 14, which was the one that depinned itself. And actually, I can't get it to focus, but looking at the end of it, I reckon that was probably depinned itself once upon a time and was shoved back in there. But it's just, that's the one that's come out, so I need to repin that. And then once that's all done, I can get all this in some nice loom, poke it back through the grommet, and yeah, start connecting up inside. So it's going to be a long night. I've already had one Red Bull. I don't know if to have another one or not, but then I won't be able to sleep when I get home. Anyway, right, I'm going to crack on.